Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Well, it does feel like the garden has suddenly picked up its pace. And spring is just flooding in. And every morning you come outside and there's something new to see. And all these daffodils, these are a variety called Thalia, seem to open overnight. I wasn't looking, I looked round and there they were, just shimmering with white. And of course everything here in the Wrighting Garden is supposed to be white, but occasionally we do get rogues. I see that a cowslip has seeded itself and the odd yellow narcissi. Not as bad as last year though, when I ordered a batch of daffodils, planted them all, expecting them to come up white and clear, and they were all buttercup yellow. I've been given the wrong bulbs. No problem with that this year though. It's all clear, shimmering white. This week, the garden designer James Alexander Sinclair visits Sussex to explore a remarkable collection.
This time of year, there is one very good reason to come here, and that is the magnificent magnolias.
And we meet a nurseryman with a passion for a flower that never lasts for more than a day.
Daylilies are called the perfect perennial in America. There's a color, height, shape, size for every garden and for every gardener's taste.
I've got a magnolia to add to the jewel garden. This is Magnolia Black Tulip, and it's the darkest, richest coloured magnolia that you can buy. And perfect, of course, for jewel garden, because we want rich colours. Now, I'm just going to dig into the alliums, which grow like a weed in the jewel garden. If you've got chalk soil, or very, very limey soil, they're unlikely to thrive. It's hardly worth growing them. I was brought up on chalk, and magnolias didn't feature. But as soon as you get into clay country or acidic soil of any kind, then they love it. I've got some leaf mould. This is last year's leaves, just left in a heap, kept moist, and look at that, they're lovely. And the beauty of leaf mould is that it provides a nice, loose, open root run. And if you haven't got leaf mould, then compost will do fine. Magnolias in general have very shallow roots, so you don't need to dig it in deep. It's just working it into the surface like that. And the point of this is to give it a good start in life. This is a large plant. It's quite expensive, quite a big investment. It's worth taking trouble to make sure it gets off to a really good start for the first few years, and after that it'll look after itself. These are easy plants to grow. If it's happy, it'll thrive. You can see that this is grafted, which means that you've got the rootstock there, and at that point there, the top bit, which is black tulip, is grafted onto it. Now, when you plant it, it's really important to make sure that that is above soil level. Easiest way to make sure that happens is just plant it the same level as it is in the pot. There we go. And gently firm it down. So it's always a good idea when you're firming in anything is to put your heel at the edge of the planting hole and the toe in the middle. So essentially, you're forming a kind of cone of soil around the roots, and that way you do less damage. Now, there are two more things I need to do. The first is to water it well. They mustn't dry out, and you could feed it once a month. If you gave it a seaweed feed, that would help it establish its roots and get a nice structure. I'm also going to mulch this. And I'm going to use a pine bark mulch, partly because I've got some left over from the grass borders, and also because it's ericaceous. And the one thing that you mustn't do is mulch a magnolia with mushroom compost, because that's alkaline. And they're much happier with a pH below 7, so that they're essentially acidic. Garden compost will be fine. And this will grow And flower, it's one of the very few magnolias that flowers early on in its life. And it's not too big. It reaches about 9–10 foot. So good for small gardens or in a border like this. And I would expect that for years to come, the Jewel Garden will be enriched with its lovely, great, dark goblets of flower. Now, you can get magnolias that make huge trees, and they, in turn, are smothered with flowers. And we went down to Sussex to see some looking at their very best.
This is Board Hill, a hidden gem nestling in the countryside of West Sussex. And at this time of year, and particularly in this kind of weather, there is one very good reason to come here, and that is the magnificent magnolias. This RHS Partner Garden holds one of the finest private collections of magnolias in England. Like galleons in full sail, they shower us in perky pinks, sumptuous whites and vivacious purples, mesmerizing us with their seductive charms. Magnolias are one of our most ancient trees. They've been around for over 20 million years. And one of the problems with that is that they evolved before bees did. So inside this flower are lots and lots of little beetles that are doing the pollination for it. And what they do is that they crawl into the closed bud and they basically sort of hang out in there for a while, and they eat the pollen and they mate and they chat to their friends. And then when finally the petals fall, the beetles have done their job and they disperse. The garden was founded in 1892 by Colonel Stevenson Robert Clark. A keen naturalist, he bought the house with the sole intention of creating a collection of trees and shrubs from around the world. A collection which is now in the care of his great-grandson. How many magnolias have you got here?
Well, we've got over 25 different species of magnolia. We've got the one behind us, which is the Campbelli molliculatum, a lovely tree. We have one which is quite small, which is a stellata, white, quite a frilly sort of flower.
Which is the sort of thing that many people have in their front gardens.
Absolutely right. Some of them are champion trees. We've got an obovata, which is over on the far side, which is champion because it's got the widest girth, fattest at the bottom. We've got, just behind me on the other side, the black tulip, this very dark purpley colour.
So how come all of these magnolias, none of which are native to this country, end up here at Board Hill?
Well, my great-grandfather, Stevenson Clark, was one of the co-sponsors of the Victorian plant hunters. And they would go out and they would send seeds back that were collected in the wild, sent back as seed, and then planted in the garden. The particular significance about magnolias in gardens like this is that where they came from, they may no longer exist over there. And so the only place that they grow at all on the whole planet will be, in a garden like this. The quality and variety of species and cultivars this collection contains is quite astounding. Trees from America, the Himalayas and Japan, all thriving side by side. And it's the job of head gardener Andy Stevens to look after them all. Andy, man in a wood with a tape measure, what are you up to?
Hi James, I'm eyeing up this amazing Magnolia Campbelli. I think this might be a new champion tree.
Hang on. We've mentioned champion trees already. By champion tree, is there a prize? Is there a cup? What is a champion tree?
Unfortunately, no prizes. A champion tree is either the tallest of its type or greatest girth.
Oh, OK.
And I think, looking at this, is going to be a greatest girth.
This one is quite generous.
Quite chunky, isn't it?
So we go round the tree this way. I'm going to come back and find you.
Yeah.
And we have got
3.66 metres.
Is that good?
That's good. We actually have Magnolia Campbelli champion by girth already.
And that is?
That is only 3.5.
Hooray!
Hooray! So
we have a champion.
A
How many champion trees have you got at Board Hill?
We've actually got 6 champion magnolias out of a total of 83. This one was planted in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Champion trees are the best examples of their type, so it's important we find them and, most importantly, propagate from them. We work with gardens such as Kew and RHS Partner Gardens and spread the propagating material around these gardens. Don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, so the more gardens that have this material, the better.
To mark the 50th anniversary of Board Hill being open to the public, Andy's current project is to plant 50 new magnolias around the gardens.
We'll put a new magnolia in here. If you take this and grab the tree, I'll
Right.
start preparing the hole.
That's not the soil as it was. You've been doing something
No, I've done
there.
a bit of work. I've loosened up the... it's clay soil around here, so it needs working. I've added some compost. Magnolia's like a good soil.
And we're in a woodland, so there's going to be lots of leaf mould as well,
Lots of
isn't
leaf
there?
mould, yeah.
And what have we got here?
That's another Magnolia Campbelli, very similar to the one we've
the
just
same
been
as that
measuring.
one?
Yeah, this is a variety called Queen Caroline,
Right.
which originally came from Kew.
So why are we digging it here?
Colonel Clark always tried to find the best spot to plant new plants.
Yeah.
We've just been measuring the big Campbelli over there, which did really well.
Yeah.
So we're trying a new one here, not too far away.
So this is the next generation.
This is, yeah.
Continuing the tradition of planting magnolias on this site is not only increasing the numbers in this fabulous collection, but also helping to protect and preserve these prehistoric trees for future generations. Today we have just witnessed the first act of the magnificent performance of the magnolias here at Board Hill. Behind these little furry jackets, these divas and goddesses have an awful lot more to offer. So get yourself down here before the show is over.
It's nice to see what I can expect the black tulip to look like in a few years' time. And if you want to go to Board Hill and see those magnificent magnolias, you can get all the details on our website. The cucurbit family includes cucumbers, pumpkins, squashes, courgettes, gherkins, and they all share the same broad growing requirements, which is sun, lots of it, heat, water, and good nutrition. And now we've got to the middle of April, it's time to start sowing them. There's no advantage in sowing them too early, because you can't put them out. Pumpkins are very seductive because they look so lovely, and there's something so dramatic about them. Taste good, too. First of all, you need a seed compost, and it's exactly the same whether you're using plastic or terracotta. And this is a new one on me. This is Blue Ballet. I've never grown this before, but I just love the way it looks. And these are fantastic when roast. And you can see the seed is a really good size. On a pot that size, I will put 3 in. 1, 2, 3. And in a pot like this, I think I can probably get 4. The point being is I'm not scattering them on a seed tray. From the very beginning, give them a fighting chance. At this stage, they absolutely need either a heated bench in a greenhouse or a windowsill above a radiator. I've got some courgettes too, and I've got a new variety here, which I can hardly pronounce. In fact, I need my glasses to be able to say it. Cocoselle von Tripoli, or something like that. Exactly the same idea as growing pumpkins, but they're slightly smaller plants and much, much easier. Courgettes are really simple to grow, and all they need is a little bit of sunshine and a little bit of space, but nothing like the same space as pumpkins. And they will grow in pots perfectly well too. And I'm going to put these around the edge of this pot, and they'll be pricked out fairly early on in their development. Now, I know a lot of people grow their vegetables in allotments, grow flowers in allotments too, and we're looking for allotments that are a bit different. Something really unusual. It could be what you grow, it could be where you grow it. But if you'd like us to come along and film it, then we'd love to hear from you. But it's got to be something that is distinctly out of the ordinary. And you can contact us via our website. And then, hopefully, we'll be able to show the results later in the year. Before I put the pumpkins and courgettes onto a heated bench, I just want to catch up with the tomatoes that I sowed, and I know that at least 4,000 of you sowed a few weeks ago. These are tomatoes that are reckoned to be particularly blight resistant when grown outside, and tomato blight has become a real problem. We had 4 different varieties. We had Lizano, we had Fandango, Lossetto, and an unnamed variety, which is a trial one. Now, all the seeds have germinated. They're different sizes and different shapes, but essentially, they're all ready to prick out because they've got a true leaf. You have the seed leaf, which has got a smooth edge, and you have the true leaf, which means that's a healthy seedling and has got roots so it can be pricked out and moved on. These seedlings are very delicate. We want strong plants, but we don't want to damage them. So the first rule when you're doing any pricking out is never touch the stem. All contact is through a leaf. And that's because if you damage the stem, that's it, the plant's gone. You damage a leaf, it can grow another one. And you take a pot like that, place it on it, and then gently just drop the soil around it. Don't try and firm it in or push it in, just shake it into place. So these go back into the greenhouse or cold frame at this stage. It's still too early to put them outside, but as they grow, we'll then gradually start to harden them off before planting them out. Another test I'm doing this year is growing chrysanthemums. What I want to do is grow chrysanthemums that will go into the jaw garden and work in amongst the hurly-burly of the border there. I've chosen colours that will mix in, so we're talking about fiery oranges and reds. I've also got 1 or 2 paler ones. There's Mary there, which will go into the cottage garden, which is a much subtler colour. But what we want are bushy plants, because if they're bushy with side shoots, we'll get many more flowers and they'll even flower a little bit earlier. So now's the time to pinch them out. You can take half the plant away. Just put your fingers above a pair of leaves, and there it goes. If you haven't grown chrysanthemums before and you want to give it a go, they're still available. They come into garden centres around about the beginning of May. And as long as they're protected until the worst of the frosts are past, and then they can be hardened off and put out, I don't think they should be any trouble at all. And of course, in the end, what we want from our flowers is delight. I've got a few Hemerocalis daylilies to plant here in a border along with the yellow roses. Now, Hemerocalis come in all shades from yellow right through to a rich burgundy, which I've got in the jaw garden. But of course, they don't flower yet. That's in summertime, and hopefully the same time as the roses. And last summer, we went to South Shropshire to visit Mark Zennick, who has thousands and thousands of Hemerocalis of every hue.
I'm from Massachusetts in New England. I started growing daylilies 37 years ago. I had a daylily nursery there. 10 years ago, my English wife and I moved here, and I thought, my gosh, this is the land of passionate gardeners. Why not start growing daylilies here? So I bought this nursery and moved my daylily collection, and so I've been growing them ever since. Daylilies are called the perfect perennial in America, and they are just so easy to grow. With more than 75,000 registered varieties, there's a color, height, shape, size for every garden and for every gardener's taste. I've brought in varieties that I've seen in America and trialed them to see how they would do in the British climate. You can get blooms that are 7 inches. You've got ones with rounded edges, you get ones with crinkled edges, which is called the corduroy effect in daylily parlance. There are ones with deeper colors in the halo, which is in the center of the throat. So each one is unique and has its own winning and seductive attributes. This is outrageous Ramona, which is the kind of daylily that Americans go weak in the knees over. It's very large, 7.5 inches. It's not very tall, and it's not very shy. So there's nothing understated about it at all. And this is Alabama Jubilee, my personal favorite. And what I like about it is that it's a wonderful orange and red combination with corduroy ruffling along the edge. Yet while it's a strong color, there's a certain elegance to it. And this beauty is Daylight. British gardeners really seem to be drawn to it. Its thin petals, its luminous color is very attractive to people. It also has scent, which is very unusual for a daylily. These plants are called daylilies because each bud opens and the bloom only lasts a day. But an established clump, like the ones I'm deadheading here, have many, many buds and stems, and they will continue to bloom for 4 to 6 weeks. Deadheading certainly makes the plant look nicer. It really has no health benefit except these spent blossoms can fall over buds that haven't opened yet, and they can seal them shut, and they won't get their chance in the sun. Daylilies' first prerequisite for thriving is sunshine. They can be grown in chalk, they can be grown in clay, they can be grown in sand. They're very easy with soils. They fit in everywhere. There's some gall midge damage. In America, I'd never seen the gall midge, and it's a nasty little bug that sets into the new buds in the spring and cause the buds to turn into pulp and never bloom. The best thing to do is to pick them off when you see them and destroy them. Don't put them in the compost and such, but destroy them. Interestingly, the midge seems to only affect the early blooming varieties. One of the wonderful things about daylilies is how well they go with other herbaceous plants. This Sammy Russell here, growing next to this phlomis, a plant that I never knew in America and yet have come to be quite fond of here. Even though the phlomis bloomed some time ago, its residual structure just sets off the daylilies wonderfully. They're very convivial plants. Not being fussy, they make friends quickly with most other herbaceous perennials. I feel so blessed to be here in the walled garden for 6 years and to bring my daylilies here. An American friend pointed out to me that the word paradise comes from the Persian for walled garden. So I'm here in paradise with my daylilies, and I am just a happy man.
Mark has an open day in his nursery on the 12th of July, so if you want to go along, enjoy his daylilies and actually make notes so you can choose what to plant for your own garden, that's the day to go, and you'll get all the details from our website. Now, I'm planting 2 different ones here. First one here is Hyperion, which is a clear yellow, a nice big plant. You can pick up daylilies relatively reasonably priced. This was about 3 or 4 quid, which is not bad for a good-sized plant. And if I plant this not too deep, just so that the soil level is flush with the surface of the pot, and backfill. Now, this soil is really rich, so I don't need to add any goodness at all, because if you overfeed Hemerocalis, all you'll get is a mass of leaves and no extra flowers. This is Daylight, which I got from Mark. It's got a lovely, delicate flower, pale yellow, and is very fragrant. Now, what I'm looking for the effect in this border is a kind of rhythm running along it of roses, daylilies, roses, underplanted with blues and other yellows matching in with them. So you don't just get the repeated pattern and refrain of yellow colours, but also the different fragrances and scents. Do you remember a few weeks ago, I forced some rhubarb by putting buckets over the top? Well, this morning, this bucket with this weight on it was forced up in the air by the rhubarb. You can see here, it's really strong and powerful. And this one is coming off. If I take the weight off and lift this up, there we are. You can see what you get when you force rhubarb is all stem and hardly any leaf. And that will be sweeter and tastier. And this is a proper rhubarb forcing pot. Whee! There you go. Of course, now I've taken it off, it flops and it's hard to put back on. I'll pick that and eat it. But even if you don't grow rhubarb, here are some jobs you can be doing this weekend.
As the days warm up, perennial weeds will really grow fast in your borders. So it's important to get in now whilst you can see them and get at them, and dig them up, making sure that you remove all the roots before they get too big. Now is the time to prune lacecap or mophead hydrangeas. Cut back last year's flowers. If you have any weak growth or tangled shoots, they can be cut back much harder, and that will stimulate fresh growth. The best time to lift and divide primroses is immediately after flowering. Take a good-sized clump and dig it up before pulling it apart into different sections. Each section can then be replanted in a lightly shaded area. Water it in well, and very quickly, each of these new parts will form a generous clump.
The frog spawn has all hatched and the pond is writhing with tens of thousands of tadpoles. And if just a tiny fraction of them become frogs, the garden is going to be full of them all summer long. The caltha is really blazing, and the skunk cabbage, the Lithochitum americanus, has for the first year thrown up these yellow spathes, and it's accompanied by a distinctive smell of overboiled cabbage. Not fragrant, but beautiful and interesting, and all part of this thrill of the pond, the trees, the garden, just itching to grow and come into full life. Well, that's it for this week. I'll be back at the same time next Friday, so until then, bye-bye. Come on.